Ja, ich satini stekat Johann. Ja, kuhig. Ja, ja, das hast du recht, ja, stekach tu. Ja, skashnik ate. A klein awa has awas kuwen. Ja, skashnik. Kunsa. A klein skashnik. Konachoy has awas kuwen. Ja, khana kit ya nai. Khayil. Nau. Kha. Wasat nakelan. Gwalt I hwa. Hast du recht, ja. Hast du recht, gachtu sa ach. Shukwa a yikwa a kinach gachtu tu. Hechwasa gugusa. Wa du yukatangi. Yata ko a kade. Yeke kwasane. Ya ḳaakéx'wti aya yidu a saku. A jawe just take cook aya gachtu tu. Just take cook a itcha du ideka kwaha. Shukwa a kushek. Aka yesheti, aka yedeshatzin, aka khat. Itcha gwash kone wujin yukagartu shaat. Shengit reinach ya idat. Gwash pleidu shugaw ka a shuwude. Aka we pleit ka reinach gwash jin kaat gwash pleit ka winnets. Aka gartu sa. Itcha tsuka gartu aq. Yata a itch hast du yukatangi gartu sa aq. Ja, nakelan ka yelnawu. Ganalchish Johan, kutlek shukwa awewa ganalchish.
Ah, ḳaakéx'wti, ḳaakéx'wti aya kakkwalanikki dat yaqathini duasagu ya awe ʼayaaḳuwdligin yudeki yantika naguk yada takawe yeduasak qathini aya chagu qawu awe yatiya ayatikhin yawar janakawe you safe place yestikhin yutlidziya yeawe kudua u aya tat kawedu ininta ka atkhaisak ajawe wukukh du atigitsu duin digigede yewe tukustinuj wasakshe du I kawaha wedigigede kawe atige has iltis we anach nakwani yet at dujiwu we taqal gwal has awu I ya kega agewe kuchte de dasa du ʼayaaḳuwdlig aya du ilidzi
Yetlet.
Mute. Whoops, ade khano. Aya du ilidzi du yidat wudikin tuye kunugu awe du achai awe you ausene ayat awe wudikin awe yok yi wudzegit dat saya asyauk kseyedin kachat awewa sa shwe kwat hint awech we at we bird. Yesu akant ye chat dau daya duka ande kana yes kuch uye gande kuch uye wuyati awe kach dach Shaawát X du digi gede I digi gate a plach a kunaseni gewe du ani du at igi kachdach Shaawát X Klish patch away kujach Klish you ku wanak gewe du yet aye away a Shaawát X we ka Klish ant ʼayaaḥuwdlig gwash an ʼayaaḥkuwdlig ich away. Wasa wune ach yakawu. Wasaya klesh adusa. Klesh zu klinket ye a stinch we an. Klech away ach achech adach gut hooch gut Shaawát X you ye one city away ye wune away glass away gwash yanach akwashesh ʼayaaḥuwdlig yadu kunkri agawetsa uneyi uwagut kata chak kustiyin kata yu duasagu at tujiwu gwash ya at u wat atuwatk at nagwa ini atsu tujiwu a wasakshe yu kuwagut ya slachan enach gewe ya wagut.
Sheesh, idiltatzin.
Mute.
Yádi no. Hey, yana gut gwasach gwasundis disach Shaawát X aga yana gut ye aga ʼayaaḥuwdlig you atawe Ḳaakéx'wti hin yach wasaya kawahayi yech aya yat la'a hin tak tlewush duk yedu u tlachlia idawe a satan tlek sak awe ayit satan Ḳaakéx'wti adaye dagati tle awsku we sak awe dul chest tlek il chesi how much each you get awsiku llingitawe a ʼayaaḥuwdlig Ajoe tle ye ausene. Ya Wuhan a ye yeti ye da dune at. We sak on ye da dune at. Andu in at. Eat eat teat you do a sock out is it aga awe yanach ak ausetan you de ki hin tanach flach du tu shahik awe adak uahu Shaawát Tlewe yech chank awe yach Gsmåox Tlia tu a chank yach Gsmåox Tle a 2 day you sich ich we yech ko a Tle ye awe adane ya kaina aini awe awa ach ha se ach kut would you heech we doc anna at
Jeez. Ausatin we qunna. Duatin we dukhus iti. Ayatlku ha wu yiktin yuch adutle atk. Tlku has du ide. Awet klaik tlel show off shusti. Kuch yau de atze. Gwalwa sak she ye kawa yad. Gwal uwa chidze. Aqa awetsu qa se awa ach. Weich ya anna atze. Wadutza ku lingit we ayu. At uwa gut. We at a de ku geye. A klein atcha ayu. We a de a kausle cheets I at. Atja we du I de stuqa kunnach de tiet a we du chuch. Shaawát gwa. We get un ya an at. Du ji yis shaawát awa. Cha ye yuch a dudle atk. Gwell tle du un du echt. Ya du ishat sak. You. Aqa awetsa. We ask a tu nach yut uwagat. Tle du un kat du ka. It's all yours. Kun yut uwa at neil day. Chu ye we ye wuti. Kun tag kanach sak she a chu ye wuti. Kayatk, du yatki. Chayak de awe. Chayak de awe. Ye a day in the cage ye qua ya kuch liqat. De yatch kaudlage. Gwall 16, 15 years. Ayu ye do a sakling gitch. Yatch kaudlage. De kuch de aske we to de tea. Ke iqnach a kunqa aqu. A gate kauchlen. A gate kauchlenik. Oh, kauchlenik. Kuchie git qua.
Okay. Kleinach a wewugoots adach. Ya kuch de niade. Ik nach a weosiku. You anach hot ua goodie. You doc nach. You shot enach. A jawe ik nach anach osiku. Ach yak. Goodie. There should be a tone mark in there. Hey. Ye Anna good. You lituya be. A kanach gewe. Khanats yeusine. Hananach a owe ye do a sock. Ya South Nianacha Nagut ke Gwa Lingit Dukede Yana good Adashi Yekudziti Yadukede Yana goodi Klefko Wechsaku Ayana ye kuwat Klachdu Khanqa Yakaguse awe dutuwuch Kinda chun yodzi Wa Tekwa wege Achawe Yeoduasa Chuyaya giyide Nagutki Tle Achwood dudle sa Kuch woodigut Tle tu Aka Gwalwasa kshaye kawayat neil Gwal to dis shudakahi Yag awe wush kade Yeosenegewe Achut uagudi Wetida Dasak shetu on Awe du yadkich Gakaya yitawe Yan has ni awe Bunehas awe at nach
بالشيش جيل يدي
Yes, snaat. A shock day wait. I gewa a dark hus wa at good kwasa shewe. Yesu a dark yauk ua kuch we kan Yesu kan sati we kan away adach has ua at we on to on chukanedi away na kide kuwa ania de kuwa kagwantan ya kagwantan ku awaits to ʼayaaḳuwdlig away at shu wood each she an planachidacht away ultanch ye away ashwaqiyati ya planachidach ku ʼayaaḳuwdlig ʼayaaḳuwdlig ʼayaaḳwahe yagu Yahweh ashtuwuyati ha adush sa wastin who away on who satin satichen we banache dach ye aya at shinuch ya yek lach anach idach ya negudi yigua yakwan you adayuka tu wako chayakde away adak awaat trinket di yawu adeyu ku auditli at kush enach yus ashit at aya chukanedi hat kis kuwe yuch wujich Ixanawu yika at kashugu ku'u kushta kauch sane yu awe ʼayaaciósika kushta kau awe auchnik ausanik kleye awa ʼayaaciósika du yatke ikina de ha uduna auchawe ye at kadud shaku kush kikadach kwana a kau du kayin ya chukanedi awe ye woodzagit di wagu we icht we kagwantan icht
Yidelitzin. Chish.
Aga awe suye kuyawa ka llingit ahe dianach a awu. Kledo in kauduanik we icht a awe hastu kanach awe ka llua guk. Gwa tina gwa we gestuji. Aga aya a kaushinik a de yu kaudi yai ye. Aga gias ke yauk nach akawa ak. Ayu kuyawa gu he ik hini. Aga aya ya duad lak ya ik. Yádi koa we an ḳaakéx'wti an ḳaakéx'wti jias ye da wudene.
Okay, chish. Ye awe we shkalnik. Yau tu a dlaqawe shkalnik klein. Well, ʻaqaʻaqwashi yata. Aqtuasagu yi satini. Ya qutan. Aye hawutian. Wushkanakhutu da a tayu qatangi kach. Ya ʻaqaʻaqwax'wti weshkalnik. Well, yuk aya ye wune. Aqa yade a tu a you do a sago at. Ya yata tuasagu yisatini. Aqa awe wechaguta kuk aqaqaqtushi. Kuk saye wuti yata. Ya hastsu. Hasa kaushahit chaguta with katki huku. Katki dan huku awe. Yak. Was yadu a tlein a datawe yuch ewatan. Aqa ʻaqaʻaqwtu yadadan. Askatu an nehinte seyi guksa. Naguk gwasye qathini dasatsu adadu qewatan aqaqaqwashi Yádi Qatini Ḳaakéx'wti ʼayaacióx'ewatan ch'akut Xóots X Qualqunea at yanakuti atatawa yuq'ewatan Shaawát like dark ana at you qunana awa Xóots Ḳaakéx'wti nagutki aqaqaqushiweta nagutki like ʻayaacióxwdlig Xóots yuq'eyati Qual yatatsu Xóots yatatsu qualkiwe nagutki nandejak qatini wedu chaku atlen qatini qotsetiqa qatini nagutki aqaqaqtushi wanachich nakuk Shaawát ha Dech Xóots ha Xóots wedu nagutki Talhasakaw shkit Ḳaakéx'wti we kunaqawu qo chakuta ya kuktlain hasakaw shahit Qual achjiwu achtneili Qual yaq'eyatitsu ya hit yik yeyati hit shantuch aqaqaqwashi qual kahtusayi Yashkalnikadatawe yutachwatank ajawe ʼayaacióxwdlig yaq Qual nagutki akatqatsawaqaqkuxsa yahastu anikaqqa atlen awe yaq artuasagu yisatini tlak yaqdat qunahu ltu sheetka khuniya yadu ts'eshuwi yuduasagu at yaq awe atlen qutsati ya akhkaniyan teqwedi ayaqualnakide awa hasbulgatsen haknukedi aqa awe atahawe hasa yausitaq haknu uksa haknu aqaqaqwashiyatakaq haknu like that ʻayaacióxwdlig we hunaqaw hastu ayi awa ya haknu aqawe kaqwashi ya haknukedi qualkiwe atahawe hasqutsati qa chukanedi ka guantan wushkitan Yawa Xóots X Yashkalnik Tsuqoa Ďááx'wti Aqawi Taqte Qoneya Nakut Taqte Awa Qunana Awa Qutziti Yak Tesh Unashe Awa Ya Has Waitene Hadayewutian which to one Kaya Ya Hatlatki Ajawe Haswatu Suku Ka Has House Akutse Wushwatutsaku Ya Atlain Ku Awe Klaku an Naki de Awa Haswu Arten Yak Awe Dak Shahini Yidu a Sakling Gitrinach Yawe Xóots Aqawe Ya de Awe Haswu Khashin Hasdu Yagu Yikt Gwarkhanas Tse Aqawakhitshan wan Qanins We Aqoa Yadu Dak Shahini Atunachaya Ya Kanadain Al-Sekh Aya Adachawe Qunnachu Yudu a Sago at Ajawe Qunnana Ani Aya Qashingit Ani which to one Has Awastinen Aya Aqa Wush to Sekh in ye Has Awasne Ka Atlain Hasu at Shiki Kuchte Hasbuda Art an Ya Hatlilko Has Ak Ish Yata Kanachewe Wugut Kuchte would the good ya Atlain at Shiki tin Yata Aha hiye ahe hiye hu Aha hiye hu Aqawi just two ye Ya Jaguta tsu Qunana Shiki Atlain Aqutziti Wutusaku Ye Awa Adat Yutachtatan Jutle Awe Watu Yashkalnik Yak Awe Hawutian Yak Aya Weshkalnik Gwelkiwe Yawahi Dasatsu Adat Tiwdatan Takat Yuhan Anak Idaq Dasawe Yati Qonea Dat Yuqewatan Anak Idaq Isikuke Gwalgwch Sacha Yak Owe Xóots X Anak Idaq Ye Awe we Dasa
ʼayaaḥuwdlig.
Anak Idaq
Yeah. Jake. Okay.
Shaawát Xóots Ye Awe Skalnik Klein Aya Ya Gachtu Tu Se de Ya Xéitx Ye Awe Ak Adayeti Yadu Ak Guchsa Awe Weshkun Klein Ada Aya An Xóots Hastu Ani Aya Yachtitan Kawushkitan Ye Awe Klek Dihin Ta Yádi Yudu a Ḥaakéx'wti Atzi Hechwasaku Asadu a Sago Atlel Ḥaakéx'wti Qunachwe Atasku Shuk ʼayaaḥuwdlig where Atgatu Adi Dachte Sego Adeyi Cher Ati Shuk ʼayaaḥuwdlig Has Awasku and Quadral Kadain has to has Awal Tuan Yahakusti Aqawe Tatyin. Ya what shukwa aya we hit. Charge hit away at ʼayaaḥuwdlig. Kainach Shaawát tukane kakwa. Kanachawe du kat a. Du khan ʼayaaḥuwdlig. Du yach yati sha. Gal du tlaak has. Du shetchi has, du kiek has. Has du ich has wud de shien. We kesane koa achoe has kawashuk. We ʼatzi a ta Yádi. Tatyin gedein has a cheuch. Gedein has cheuch. We a ta Yádi a yide awe wujak ein. Lldekat has du waq ach a kawati. Lldekat has du waq. Ach a kawsa gan a kade awe a kawakich. Ke uwe ich. Ḳaakéx'wti. Ye awe. Gwell tlell has wuin gwell ye. Lldekat has du waq ach wuha hoa. Tukane ye awa u. We Shaawát. Adat you to the tan wanach so a tlellachit has with the she. At atina ħatketi achit with the she ya tukane tin. Kainachawe. Tukane ye awa u. Kunyaki sakshawe ye wutien naka adachu good. Has to hit the yich. Ausatin just the katka. Kinde has to walk ko a tlelkuste. Just shet a ya a kaye wutien. Has to walk eatik. Kasi ye. A joy tush cut away a kawachak a train awa a dugu. The cut a dugu. Nusk, Pooch, Yacht, a train a. Kunachawe kinde a coward. Tush a cow the chuck. Du dokane du jiwu. Yes, the cut du inku u Tai hooch. A joy dakte wu good. Yadach, dakte. One is away, ya atwu good. Dekone awa ke u ik. Gwash anak idak khatnach sati. Gwash anak idak khatnach sati. Akat anak idak husatien. Yewa you do a sago at anak idak. The cutway at a dugu awe. Du dadza khawu husati. The cut du da it away konach dadza khaw. Du tukane zu dadza khaw at. Kainakwe kha. Konachwe du toa sagud nahin. Al qat ate. Konachwe koa. Hu awe. Ya du would lockch. Yan du lockch awe. Aka awe. Klesh dasa du jiye wutien. Kanashki dek husati. ʼayaaḥuwdlig. Kawusha tish. Akawa ak we Shaawát awa with the shayan. The cat has to ish hascha has to tla hascha yes. Ye has yawas kayan. Tlag kudachawe ilka. Tlag kudach ilka. Tasha tuashko. Ho awe at go to ʼayaaḥuwdlig. Awa ach awe. Dokane ach. Wasa ausaku wasa udne. Anak idakawe du khant wu good. Du na atiawe at du da idakawe ye ausane. Kad na da yihinik kadein awe. Shwud da oos. The kat du da. As yikdawe. Ho awa outlet sin. Du tayichawe wu good we anak idak. Du tukane awa shad. Anak idakha. ach jititi, hahi, ach tukani. Hokot. Yakwati, shukwaka. Ya at gu eight. Gandinagu. At eight. Hokot like. Guk. Akat tukani, jide kakwasanuk. Ye away du ʼayaaxuwdlig ye yausani. Akat du tukani away du jid. Kuch with zanuk. Kuch out zanuk. Ye away. Aka kuch out zanuk. Aka away. At de wugu ausatin. Du gande nagudi. Gunyach yati at. Kawan kanins. Ya as. Wutlig. A yikt away. Katkatsewak akwasatu asaga at. Aka weta du jiye wutin du gwekli tut ye wuti. Kanachawe shachel du jiye wuti weka. Just the katka ya wutlak. Nahain alka. Kanachawe shenach du jiye wutin. Kun hits away du jiye wutin atlein a. Gur zu. Du gur o. Hasu hit ye hasawa o. Wasa shenach. Akawe atlein ko hasu tuasaku hasu to seek aya. Ho awa sha. Hokoa. Ye hase yaw saka. Kanashki dek hatsatien. Klesh ye to walk hashku. Yaidatqa ye to asaku. Kleshach to ashku yidatqa. Kleinach awe Shaawát ʼayaaḥuwdlig. Tlaklawe tusha an du in. Atwe du ish katutla. Ho'owach ewa wuz. Helke ʼayaaḥuwdlig. Yisikawe shai. Qawe ye wuti. Yet anak idak shkashnik. Yak ʼayaaḥuwdlig. Anak idak. Ho'owe yuch ewa tan adat. Ya aksani klein. Kiet ye nai. Tlakach inach kwashkiwe chinkat winit sa kakach tulsa. Wasa yi tuuj. $10 minutes of English, and then we'll take a break.
I just started thinking in Tlingit.
Okay. We'll take a break, then we'll come back right into Tlingit.
Okay. Every time I read these stories, they get more and more meaningful and deeper.
Yeah. This is what I want to make a little map of this one with all these places that we could see exactly where it was that he walked around. That's a big part of it, is when he decided to go walking. And I guess I had a couple of things to check on. Do we know what nase and nashe are? Nase, nashe.
Eszkosaku.
I'll put them in, let's see. Let me write them down so we could see them.
Does one have to do with being far away?
Yeah.
So,
Hold on. Maybe I don't have a document. Oh, there it is. Okay, I thought I had something ready.
I heard the same elder say Niyade and Yanade interchangeably.
Yeah, those ones. So I do think it was, so like Niya and Yina,
Yeah.
because they both come probably from just something like this. Like I don't know what they were, but this was in it a long time ago. So it's probably this nya, and then
Oh.
so you'll see it all the time. And so this, like when they say huniya, that's built in there. It's built in a whole bunch of place names. It's all over the place. This yina, and once henya, sanya, it's all over the place, and it has
Oh.
multiple meanings. It could mean in the area of something, or shielding or protecting something. Those are your two main sort of meanings. But once it's another one of those things in Tlingit where once you sort of figure out what it is, you start to see it everywhere.
And then
Hashemiya.
Yana is in the song. Dukuji yana de hua aha.
Yeah, so like Achinade would be over towards me. And there's another one. So this one is also worth really taking a look at. Shu, right? So like we'd usually say that's the end of it. It's the end of something. De shu, end of the trail, uh, you know. But it starts to get more complicated because you'll see Raven says this one. He says ach shu de, which means come and get me. I don't know how that works. And then shoot out the uck, and you'll see it in a bunch of places too, right? But so na se is far, and na se is near. And so these ones are pretty neat. We were looking at some notes. I was working with Kuch, David Strong, and we were going through the notes of Louis Shotridge, and he had written a bunch of this stuff down. Because then you can also say kunase, and you're saying this close, and then you can have kunase this far. So now you've mentioned some sort of distance. And what's really wild too is I don't think you could probably say tesh unase, but it doesn't have as much varied meaning as tesh unase, which is also about 3 or 4 ways you could say it. But tesh unase means not far, and it could also mean not very long in terms of time, and it could also mean almost. So just on its own, if you said tesh unase, it's hard to interpret because you need context. It's one of these ones that has a bunch of different meanings, right? So if someone says, if we're paddling in a canoe, and someone was to say like, how long, or is it close? You said, it's not far. That means it's not going to be very far. We're almost there. This also works really well with a future verb with the little suffix on it to say it won't be long. So for example, tesh unashe ade gach to chuchu. It won't be long until we go there. Tesh unashe at gach to chai. It won't be long until we eat. Right, so this is a time marker as well, because time and distance are talked about the exact same way in Tlingit. And then when you use it with a perfective, it's almost. Tesh unashechwa und. I almost shot it. Right? Tesh unashech, right? It almost got it, right? So these are really fun, and they pop up in these stories, and so as we were going through it, made me think of it. There's another one that popped up in here, which is ʼayaaḳuwdlig. Last one, then we'll take a break. Do we know this one?
Plural sleeping.
Yeah, so this is plural sleeping. And then there's a related one that was this one. Ya an at. These are doing the same thing in one way, and I'll get to what that is.
Plural walking.
Plural walking, right? So they both have this thing, which is an unusual pronoun in a verb. And what it is for certain verbs, mostly motion verbs, but also a couple others, it's an, I don't know how to say, it's an unusual, irregular fourth person.
Oh,
So this would be people are sleeping. People are walking. So usually this is d, right? So you could say at ducha. People are eating, right? That's what the d is. Most of the time, that's what the, yuchat duasak, do. Most of them are this fourth person, like people are doing it or it happens. But there are some verbs. I'll try and build like a list of them someday. But it's a lot of motion verbs. A lot of motion verbs will do this. When you want to use a fourth person, it just pops out to the object spot, which is weird. Okay.
I had a question if somebody know about, I was looking at this in the English translation on page 155, and he says something like that man has clubbed his sleep. What does that maybe mean? Like maybe, I don't know, he's dead or something? Or
So this
there's a story. It's a Coho story. You want me to tell about it? Okay. So there's a Coho story about the man who clubbed his sleep. So he and his friend were out fishing, and there was a little bird that was dive bombing him. It was going around his head, bothering him. He took his paddle and he hit it. And when he hit that little bird, it fell into the boat dead. And when that bird fell into the boat dead, his fishing partner fell asleep. And he had to paddle back to shore by himself. He pulled the canoe up and left his partner in the boat, and he went up into the clan house to get help. And when he walked in the door, everybody fell asleep. And he went to the next house and the next house. And every time he walked into the house, people just fell asleep. He decided to leave. He had to banish himself because he was no good for his community. He was causing everybody to fall asleep. It's a super long story, but that's the beginning.
Yeah, and that's what's wild about Ḳaakéx'wti, because he references a bunch of these stories, right? And so it would be fun to, like, I told that ʼayaaḳuwdlig story because he ties that in here, and he ties this one. It would be fun to get that one and tie it in here, and then to have this be like the opening or maybe the closing. I don't know. I think it'd be cool to have the opening, and then you read each of those stories that he mentions, because Keith, of course, he would have known all of those stories. But what was interesting to document a storyteller like this is they would just sort of say it as if you knew it all, right? So they would just give this little summary of it, and then when you're reading it, you're like, wait, what? But then once you get that he's connecting all of these stories together through this narrative, then you start to get it.
right.
But the verb is there. Do yatai awa Ḥaakéx'wti. So it's really interesting because ta is sleep. Like that's the noun for sleep. But it's also a third person, it's a verb, right? It's one of the shortest verbs in Tlingit. So if someone comes over and they're looking for someone, but that person's taking a nap, they'll be like, Gusuhu, ta. Like that's a complete sentence. They are sleeping. Ta. They are sleeping. It sounds like it needs more, but that's it. It's one of the shortest verbs in all of Tlingit. But there's other times when it becomes a noun where it changes to yata, which is why you say, where'd my notes go? Okay. So there is this kind of framework that we use. Let me rearrange this a little bit. So there's this one verb we will say, I'll just use this, eat, and then you usually have, it's usually a theme, but we'll just say a noun for now. And then you have uwaha, right? And so most of us know there's two things that a lot of us know. And what are they? Eat in this pattern.
Jan?
So that's how I'd recommend writing that one from now on, is that yan it's a noun for hunger, but it should be built right onto here, I think. And then what's the other one?
To be sleepy?
Yatawaha.
Ahit yatawaha, right? And so yata is this noun version for sleep. So when they say do yatayi, that's someone's sleep. So if you want to talk about your sleep, for like you're just trying to say, I don't know what you would say about it, but it would be yatayi. So it's right here. Do yatayi away. And this means to club something on the head. So yeah, it's tying to this larger story. And so what's interesting too is some of these versions of it, and it's interesting, and it could be because Nora's recording him, and Nora's his daughter, so he's probably told her these stories his whole life. So when she says, hey, I'm going to record you telling the story, he might tell a very condensed version of it, because he's like, well, you know all this, so I'll just walk you, you know. And so it's interesting when you get this, because then that would be fun to sort of tie it to this larger thing like we just did, right?
Can I ask one more?
Since
it's related to this story before we move on to the next story. On page 157, it says on line 70 or 69 or something like that, it says, what are these little deadfalls doing here, sitting there in the water? I couldn't think of what deadfalls are unless they're like trees.
So we got yech. Let's see what we could find.
I think he's referring to fish traps. That's part of the Taka story.
He was talking about fish traps, yeah, but maybe deadfalls is a term for something to do with fish traps. I don't know. Yeah.
He's still referring to the sleeping man story. That's part of what happened to him on his adventure traveling to the interior to the Athabascans. I heard this story several times at our culture camp out at Fish Camp around the fire. And it was probably several elders that told it. And Mark Jacobs was one of them. And I think Albert Davis was another. If you don't mind me sharing the rest of that story, I'd like to, because it appears that details from this story is popping up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a yech is a I don't know what a deadfall trap is, though. I'm not a trapper. I grew up in the bush. But there's several different types of traps. He mentions qata, and he mentions yech, and then there's fish traps, and so so that's the yech, these little deadfall traps. Okay, go ahead.
So after this man who killed his sleep left the village, the way I heard the story was that people came back to, they were fine, but not when he was around. And so he left and he'd migrate. There's there's a word for it. He went on a long walk. Anyway, he followed the river there, and it might have been Dry Bay, because he went up into the interior, and he found a place where there was hooligan, so it had to be a river or stream way up river that had hooligan run, and so he just for the heck of it, he built a fish trap. I'm just telling you the way I heard it. And he put it in the water and he filled it up. And meanwhile, he dug a pit and lined it with something. I don't remember what. And maybe it was skunk cabbage, but that's what we would use on the coast, but I don't know what they use up the river. And so he was filling this pit with hooligan. His trap would get full and he'd dump it in the pit and he'd put it back in the water. And so his footprints were along the stream. And so he heard some voices and he hid. And the trap was in the water. These people were coming by and they spoke a language he didn't understand. And they were frightened by this pit full of hooligan. They were afraid. They were really afraid. And they talked among themselves for a really long time, but they finally decided to take it home. So somehow, I guess, they don't have plastic bags, but somehow they packed it up and took it home. And so he thought, oh, okay, whatever. So he started fishing some more. He put some more fish in there. And the same thing happened the next day. They came by and they found hooligan in there and they took it all home. This time they took it home just like that. And, oh, well, whatever, he says. So he puts his traps back in the water, or he keeps them working. And then when he got up in the morning to go and empty his trap, they were waiting for him and caught him and grabbed hold of him, and they ended up taking him home. He ended up staying with them for a number of years. First, he lived with the bachelors, and then he was so helpful, he taught them all of the knowledge he had from the coast. And so they married him off to one of the women that was there, and so he was married. And then he was really getting homesick, so he talked his wife into agreeing to go with him. Wait a minute. Was that the first time? Anyway, he did this multiple times, but the first time she didn't go back with him. She didn't go to the coast with him. But his brother-in-laws ended up coming with him on his trip back to his original home, and they brought all kinds of gifts. And so they went back to the community, and he walked in the door, and his clan uncle did not fall asleep. Everybody was fine. He'd broken the spell. And so he gave all of those gifts to his uncle, and his uncle was just really pleased. And then he went back with them to his wife. And the next spring, she agreed to come with him. So they spent a whole year on the coast. Of course, the brother-in-laws gave them gifts to take and went with them and took the gifts to give to the uncle. So he got 2 batches of gifts, one in 2 years in a row. So the wife got to know the Tlingit women, and they were teaching her how to do weaving and how to do all of the artsy things that they do on the coast that they didn't do in the interior. And he asked her, do you really want to go back? And she decided she didn't want to go back. And so they stayed on the coast. His uncle was so happy with the treasures he'd brought and given to him and the wealth he'd given to the community that he built a brand new house for him and his wife. And they called it Tahit, the sleeping house. So there's more to it, but I'll stop there.
Okay, that's so helpful. It's so helpful because, it's a wonderful story that he tells. But yeah, I do think it's a bit of an abbreviated version, just because, not that he didn't know it, but I think it comes down to, like, when you know someone and you tell them a story, sometimes you told them that story 100 times, so you just tell them this short form of it, which is, and who knows the recording, I think when he talked about getting reprimanded, it's because he kept using English. I think that's what I heard. And so, like, Emma was there, and
I have.
she was like, and I think in a later story, I think in Natsishane, that's why he counts in Cantonese, because he's like, fine, I won't use English, I'll use Cantonese. And so, because he was incredibly smart, just know ton of stories, but yeah.
I like to call it the kindergarten version, the teenager version, the you know, a little bit older version, and then there's the old person version. You don't have to put all the details in. You just touch on it, and all of these stories they've heard their whole lives just explode and back up and enhance the few words that he's saying. Is pretty cool.
Yeah, wow.
And we only know the kindergarten versions.
In the very first paragraph, so for the word they used to live there, ʼayaaḳuwdlig, and then further down it says it again, ʼayaaḳuwdlig. That's such an interesting way to write it, I guess. So is that like a decessive, like with the T and the underline X and the E?
Right here?
Yeah,
so you would say, Yéxattichin, I lived there. But in this case, Yéxattichin, people used to live there. So yeah, it's the decessive version of Yéyati. Right? You could say like, Zantikihinik Yéxatyati. But you could say Zantikihinik Yéxattiyin. I used to live there.
Okay.
And there is an interesting thing where sometimes this is popping up just like this, and then sometimes it's in a perfective form as well. So you'd say like wusatiyin, or you'd say, in that case, you'd say ʼayaaḳuwdlig. But so yeah, that's what that is.
Okay, conchish.
And there's a couple other really neat things, like ʼaak is the inland away, specifically. Usually you're saying behind something, but like here's the thing, here's the ocean, here's the thing, here's what it means by behind it. It's further upland from a thing. And then ʼayaaḳ is the other direction. So here's the thing, here's the ocean, it's going this way. So those ones are pretty cool, because they're kind of like, there's a bunch of those things that are kind of like that. Nase and nashe, those are opposite concepts. ʼaak and ʼayaaḳ are also opposite. So like if you have a house on the beach, the things on the beach side would be ʼayaaḳ, and the things on that upward side would be ʼaak. Okay, break time. Take 10, come back, and we're gonna do back-to-back the Xóots stories. We'll just listen to them in Tlingit. I'll scroll through and be excited. Oh yeah, Ẓayakan, right? Oh, we'll get to that one, okay. ʼayaaḳuwdlig Johan, shkasnik Tlenk. Shukwa, wait. Naski Xóots start. Shukwa. Xóots ʼayaaḳuwdlig Shaawát. Dachtihin awe shukwa ʼayaaģiļnawu. Itcha nakillan. Aqa'awitz ihwa we Ḳaakéx'wti shkalniki. Shukwa ʼayaaḳuwdlig hechwasaku atusa uhin. Atlein ku'u tishuku shkalnik aya. Hasaklanik. Dekina koyakan tishuku shkalnik aya hasausaku. Ḳaakéx'wti teqoidi ʼayaaḳuwdlig. ʼayaaḳuwdlig Johan, penalchish.
Xóots. Ydych Shaawát X. Yádi doe inie. Discover inie die para. Ydych kocht neste kocht at. Wedi seket. Udydde. Ydych na Xóots X. Wat goed, dat was wel. Als je goed is, dat is het. Dat is de lokale. Wat de rekking wat is het getakte daar. Wat zit gaat goed. Dat zaak ook het nog aan die gaat. Dat gaat wist het gaan. Dat weet. Dat kon ik weet. Xóots. Ik ben nou goed. Ik kon ik nog zeggen. Goed, ik kan lezen. Ik kan geen schrift willen. Ze heeft het zeker dat de katten die nog kan zeggen. Xóots Shaawát ʼayaaḳuwdlig. Het de kijk wat hij snakkelt goed. Is gegeten goed op haar. Goed op haar zitten. Is haar. Verschillende goede daar. Agina daar. Kijk. Ach is, dat gaat kocht zo. De kocht wat. Dat je zegt agina. Weg niet zitten. Weg niet zitten. Ja, nog niet zo uit hier. Zo sugar dat je doet. Je doet sugar, dat is schade om ze niet. Dat gaat aan hoor. Lichtje naar je dat zo de gauw dat je het. Dat gaat zo. We zitten je dat zo je zo gauw dat je het. Misschien dat gaat zo. Het schaase, al gaat het uit die schaal. Ja, ik zeg het. Ḵaakéx'wti. Je kunt zien, dit was het niet. Je doet het. Ḳaakéx'wti. Wees je waar met door, daar is daar. Dit kees rindig. Zo daar. Dat gaat goed deze. Hij, de waan is wat wat is dat je gaat daar. Tu zit daar kan we schaal. Die is het zaakje. Wat is dat je gaat daar. Ja, dat is het. Wat is het zo daar. Weet je niet. Ḳaakéx'wti. Je vroeg het de dag van die. Dat je uit een getuigenis. Xóots. Ja, dat gaat het. Dat gaat niet zo uit. Dat gaat ook goed, wat je weet dat je weet daarheen. Gaat het gaan. Ishak, Sach, Sash. Tegenwoordig, TikTok aanig. Nu hier. TikTok, ik denk dat je TikTok. Maar hij tak daar ook al. Jennes koe. TikTok is goed, ik kan echt zeggen, goed goed, dat zien je. We kunnen ook toe. Was het ook? Shit. We gaan het hoor. Kan zeggen. Niet was het shit. Akawe yeshta. We kunnen dat gaan. Aan de ene is meer huis. Zaad ook de stad. Sam Shiko weet het heel goed, dat heel is niet. Sinds je keer dat je ik kwam, weet het gepacht, wat niet is. Zo weet, zo houdt ik doe goed, dat je keer dat gewoon houdt. Maar dat is zeer. Skeer. Wat de keer dat je skeer. Maar kan je dan zeggen? Wat dat gaat, zie je daar. Ḥaakéx'wti. Utitziku. Weet je iets, kwijt het had, kwijt de kwijt die. Doe het in de gezien, weet het in het water. Maar gaat het ook de is zo. Dat weet. Wai, ik had gezegd, dacht dat het die uit. Maar ze zien, dit zei dat gaat. Dat je goed weet, zo. Als je maar het is, de kare, jeetje. Kijk het, zo daar zei ik een gezien. Wit. Maar Fijin in ʻAʻyaʻuwdlig. Wat doe ik als? Maar doe het hier was het laat gezien doe het hier. Weet het in het water. Van de goed had je het. Maar kocht dat van de haat, kocht dat van de haal. Kan ik eens op zien. Wat doe ik als? Voor een Fijin naar gestegen. Zo zei yes. We voelden zo deze op zijn ja. Dus ik wil weer zeggen, kan. Was dat dus het interessante. Ja. ʻAʻyaʻuwdlig, kun je dat gaan, dat je naar. Ik doe niet dat geen aan. I don't want to borrow that thing. Very restricted, so doe ik doen. Daar zei daarna zitten. Je zei dat niet. Wat zei je zei dat? Zei kushete, zei de laat prisie van die zoek doen. Gaat wat is het dan? Gaat het nog thuis gebaren? Oké, is een zin. Oké, ik heb dus niet. Ik deze. Skal du sige retter på den morgen til efterår. Og til sin bønder. Og retter krøvende retter springtegn. Epo. Bare jeg sidder tøjet. Og der er overkægt, der Christi, der du er høj. Så kårab, ude af savgræt, overkægt. Kæst et lægge, så at det. Med udskidt her. Ja, pige, jeg tager det. Og det har det, og sådan er godt. Og godt. Så er I tør. Aha. Og det ser ikke godt ud af. Hvad Shaawát du det? Og jeg koster kun der. Hvad gør noget rækker? Aha. Det koster kun der. Apa kan der syge kød. Hvad er det for hvad det går ned? Ikke så at ristakker sig om det. Hvad kan gøre det træt for at det er rigtigt? Det går godt. Hvad der gør hvad skal det der? Hvad så? Hvad det er ikke? Dagnacht. Det går godt. Så synes jeg, at man den kan ikke gå. Vi kan så sige. Ḥaavēt ve Shaawát Ḥaakéx'wti āyad gādu Ḥaakéx'wti. Vi shan khīd. Så gāsa stāi nek. Hādā kān. Hakikā īgāva huwa. Āyad pata Shaawát sāqāta gāi uji Shaawát. Āyad te. Bīkha te ektige. Āyad khāid āyad khā. Sātuya āsad. Sāk.
Wat ik ook het gaan.
Kā. Tutlewe dashtiya. Suheda dashtiya jehda āqīte. Aqāt kutu āyāḥuwdlig. Andak takutig. Wat? Shit. Så kan jeg jo det der. Og det tøvende skal man fast. Hvad? Ja, så er det skal ikke. Hvis det der også er det er fresh det er sager. Jeg kan jo det. Så tøvende skal man fast. Hvordan er det? Så Shaawát. Så kan der Shaawát. Og jeg kan tyde og det. Det er sygt. Og der var der sygt, og det huske på det her. Og jeg kunne til at gøre det. Og jeg kan tyde. Og det kan sige, at man sygt skal jeg kunne starte. Så kan der Shaawát. Og så er det genfanget. Ja. Så det er så og jeg starter. Og der så jeg gør den her āyaaḥuwdlig det så. Ja, det bliver det så det og det det Hvad så? Hvad kan du lide det? Krøst. Working out, to get good things all down. But you take out. I wish I had. But I'm so good. What the page? What the page? I see it all. Good. Good like it. What you see, you can't have to take. What do you? But you take a look at them, but I see you. Kinder. Say, kind of people. To see that I see did a deen a jagai. Tough. What a shit on price. I just one day run over there. Feed that girl. But I had come to see it. But I sapas. She could get it, sapas. Rather a cruise. But you, Hassi, you ate it or I tell a shout. But the cage. ʻAʻaʻi sipaika ʻayaaḳuwdlig I Shaawát ika. ʻayaaʻuwdlig. ʻaʻaʻi sambura. ʻAʻaʻi wiki. Seisiai tati ʻayaaʻuwdlig. So screwed to issue either. On time, because you is category you get. Right. Breaking all the time waiting at trade good. We can go straight up. But the shaking the passage had that a year done. Get it hard. A cool step. Said you know setting. Any. Say at the dichter. We go first. You have a good to see. Being a capacity. Yeah, in account. ʻAʻaʻi Kuchit Sishako ʻayaaʻuwdlig. Says doing Kanani. Ripagara Ḥaakéx'wti. Ada Shampan after Yahasa Ḥaakéx'wti. A Juji Dadadana. Yada Shketi. Sishako ʻayaaʻuwdlig. It's a sewer had to stop. Ripagara Ḥaakéx'wti the Sham. The Ḥaakéx'wti. Ḥaakéx'wti. That was true. Pain and the ʻAʻaʻi that the G do the food. They had to look it. That's it, the Saturday, cool. Other from there. Ik gekocht een goedje. Zat koop af. Het was het later afgevoerd. Met dat job was goed. Hij was dat. Dat weet dit gieten. Dag nacht. Dag Teachtugu. Such a take religion anything. Restara. Akai share cooks. Away out of Kashi. That I she couldn't get shit. After Ďáďux'wti. Restara. Yádi. ʼayaacióxuwti. Yestiqa yenetiqa. Ashishiete. Ďáďux'wti. Akashi. Kete.
ʼayaaxuwdlig. ʼayaakáx'wdlig. ʼayaaxuwdlig. Wato'ona ʼayaaxuwdlig. Xaawát ayuch'ak. Ch'uyewe. Ďáďux'wti watujuj tuguyi. Adaxtaqaya. Ďáďux'wti yaxtugu. Nachni daish. Ayaxtaqaya. Taxotu yetkitsa. Chutlatut aqtuwawat. Aqana qaku. Eetzalkajuutan qa'at. Ch'uwita awanakutich. Qasakxenasti ch'uwitsalk. Retakuchk'iyaqa jixnilta. Chutlawak qakuta watsawatujuj. Tuguyi nat'utay. Ti'ik watliq. Tliqjutak qakuta. Tleena llaqadayuguit no nat'utayish. Tlachuxukujuch qawanas. Wati yatkiki. Wati kixila'anika. Watliqju. Washaawát ʼayaaxuwdlig. Wati yatkitsashi. Atuk unterhienes geht so. Wati ik has. West Ďáďux'wti. Atli. Ďáďux'wti. Atasi kuch atskatullati. Aqawana kani. Tlag. Tlis ayisquxti. Yesqatani. Tlis uxukuaqquxti ch'uyuwti. Await waqquj. Tutuku. Natqatayish. Tlis tlakuaqtunatanaaqtuyuwti. Achutlag. Achiqati. Ch'uay kuatzay iqat kuqati. Acha'ana. Yisenas qatli. Aqtlag. Chatirachkanaqtuyset. Atakuntayini. Yena qaqa. Yeshiataqa. Akuk. Aqinas achkunqallat. Sieta qaita qati tlatzat. Good. Dat is een stuk gedaan goed en nou not am dish wat de hoog doen. Je go goed als het. Wat deed je? Wat deed je toch die? Het daar toe. Ik ken nou, wat ken nou Shaawát. Wat lekker. ʼayaaxuwdlig. Het is geësuutje. Wat taak, wat je net. Wat zoen. Wat zoen ook dat Shaawát zoen.
Oh.
Ik dacht, zwaar kachel goed, wat doe ik? Zou je eten? Tegen die te doen eten. Zou je kijken, taak, eten gaat. Wat zoekjes, je doet zaken, wat je net het tweedigste tegen. Zeer gaat het. Wat laat je dan zeggen? Chết với tụi khó sợ tắc hồn nó quê khó tao này rồi cha tin ta khó tụi khó ta tới sửa quá sợ với chữ này thế nó ta sẽ tiếp tục đấy rồi có ai với tụi ít là có ʻaqaʻa samduaq. Idnaqa. Aqaʻa hastaxu amtikut. Takulinaqsak shayla tetsudaaqsasiste. Witu yatkita. Awayena ne aqaʻa ashtukika. Watiqlaqtu jiyasate. Aqtiavsi. Jack, with it like. That's the end of it. ʻayaaxuwdlig?
Ja, dus kadeen wonen.
Joe, wisgaltnig. Deslin owe a kaushchid. Deslin owe ye wutien, we ka yelnawu. Aqaʻa ja nakillan qitach tshuguskalnik we oe ʻayaaxuwdlig ye wutien ʻayaaxuwdlig.
خط ate khan katinikiya ate khan takuya ya skatlik you kunna aya ya kho ya takka kunna aya astutat katnikaya ya to Yádi ka kwanik tinkat ya wakhi ya tis ade khan katini ya kautini suqanakh ya katnik qadakh khawa ya qanana ade khaya ya qatan te ya qanain tak iti ya do sa tak iti ya na ete ya kana en ya shatke tu is kel kaya an engaged asko qasha ayana itqa'a wa'at Yäytetini jääjänä, jäätäs ne tyjään. Ja havaisia, vai joku otkiisia, usikut. Ja toaji ja satke. Tätä jääna ati, ja Xóots X ʼayaaxuwdlig, ja Shaawát. Artichukaklanakut. Ja ʼayaaḵuwdlig kautlijes ja satke. ʼayaaḳuwdlig. Ante kattaa yeeyate. Ante yeeyawak, yeeyusika. Waasaksiaka tas kakanates atlinnekke tokkakakku. Yu katan ate kaawakkeja. Ate kakken. Jansit niwataaqne aawaat. Un waasaksi aawaat. Ďakuwdlig. Wajanas jaanat. Ajaan taasi. Ju ajaudu saajatik. Ajaan taasi. Atia ajakat kaakko. Jo ajaan taasin kokkuus jiwahaajat. Jeekajatokha. Nakotst. Taasacht. Das geht Ghana. Goed, de naqaawaaatka. Adak katahan, adak konekut, adak achtakaya, konewa kutu. Akate kwete yana kutu, suku yutu sanne, yutu iskaiska, yoan in kaitkseteja. Tu suku huuyate kwete yana kutu. Asiit Xóots. Asiit Xóots, asiit Xóots, asiis, eskias kaata. Tlaxuayes kaata jiwa atka. Akaya wajita suwa, atxatata yakas akaxi. Dewa asawa xe. Xóots tlenkit ayutuwaq, tlenkit chusuku tlenkit, Xóots. Wakan xitasautiak, hakuktasqenes atja. Kata utawukwe axes. Yan se taxayi tayitasuwat. Xóots teyi tatlenkit chusuku tlenkit. Kaatewesukte atakatin ʼayaaxuwdlig. Shaawát takatin ʼayaaxuwdlig. Ťakauskite titawiyuwuna aqaqtuutitinuk. Akayaya tatuawanuk wa Xóots. Atayin ʼayaaxuwdlig. Tusuku tlenkitsete. Aqawayastaayaqa. Xóots tuwutik. Xóots qosana. Taqaya iqqasa. Sukwait qataytqa. Ya tlenkitoqqa. Tasiskitan qataysqa. Ataya. Iqqataaqtik qasaqwa. Tahtawasete tuwuute. Tusuku tlenkituwaq. Xóots. Vanese qaqutasuwat. Yes. Yes, there were, yes, there. وقناك سخاتين يجيتيش أقوى تحتوات خات عنيتا أتخان تياها يخ شنكت يخ هس أتخان دواخ أتخان سكية ستانا هيا يا كن يدو إنشاء تسكت تيهين تاتخ شاقيا يداتنا وكتلك أو هو أعوى تسوسيكو أعوى أقاق الشيوى كن واسك كن ويدو إن أحسايا خاوى تعالجون دوتو كوكو يخوانا تيت وان نيتا هاتانا آت تشين كتيخ كيا خد نشخوكت أخنا كتي كاخك خطتي كاكوكيك يا تنشتنا آتي يا حسكنا كتي كاخكيسة تتيت كوتكيكي كان كاكوا كوتكيكت تعرفك كنت وكن تؤايق حوالي يكول كيست وهين ستيين وانا خسيك تيين الجواء عاشق وتوتا يا يخشات وتتكر نستنى آتي يا خاتخان أتي أو هستخان أتي وهستوخو وأتنك سيت كيك تتيت يخطأ خسو تيت يوهستهيتي السين كتيخ يختاقو تتيت تختي تتشات وقانا أتي تجي وقت وانتيق كنت كتتو خات هاتي تاتنا تاقني يستقوان أتقوان وحان هوا خستاش يستي أسخاء أيها الهوا خسخو هستقان وجيها يخ قلنا ناتي يخ هستقان تنحكيدي أن أستقوان تنحكيدي أن أستقوان نوتا دي حياوكا دي تاخدو وخون تاك آن نيتي كيوهانيو يدخان آن نيتا خي تاك قايحاتي آتهانت خختتا آتساء آنيك يا ودت وخون تخيسي تاتا سيكوك قاي حستتي وهان خستاشتوتي يا حسد خاني هو ده كان خطوتي ويانا وكنت ويا يوسف حاوت خوخ كو شاوات ḳaakéx'wti ثلاثة ʻayaaxuwtin tu'uyk'asatna atchiyä ʻayaaxuwtin atuwa'a aanqasaqlayej taaqajatuat'astlay wa'aqhuwukaja tuajqu hitawa tutliej anuwaniwa hit ayinajesiwa'at ayinajyajas'at qun'as juisakxiwa tqawutlay تاكوتيك وانا قصه تتحوشي تاكوتيك يأسي والثقة وثيقي يعود خنك شنكت قصاك يا شنكت قصاك يا يعود خنك يمكن أو أختك يا يتحكنا تا أختك كتو أو أشين أو تخ دوا دسو أكسو أتسو خوتا عن أول شيختو تآية سوتي يا خوتا تاكوتي دي أوه تاكس يودنك ودو تإيكس ودو تتين ودو تتين خوت خسيتي تخاخو تشيوت خسيتي أو يدو ساكو يدو ساكو تاكو خاوت كيكي تتنوك قد تسلكت ودو ساكو كيك كن آوات يودو ساكو كيك كن سوات آوات تتيهي تدخل خواتي تكتويكس يوتشون يتخوان استيقظ كاس استقطيني وكيك استيقظ كاس يخوتشون استيقظ كاس يخويتي كهيقا كان كنت سنة خيوشي نخني كتكان أيخوك هو النوك وآكتا كنت كنت أخوكتا شكوتكت سيينتيت يا قواتو هتو سوكو شكوتكت وكيت قواحس استقطيني يودو استقطيني هو هسعدا يوتويت اتسواق خويتي تويتي نت وخوت وخويتي وحاقتيني مشتاق الحيط أقواس قد تقلت قندي وشكت ونزولي كان أخوتي هذا هو الطاق قوت سوى كوك وكيت استقوش دكانك لا تكتي وتسكن أقوى يا يوسف قوات شد كنت دكان خطوتي دكان خوتي الخوت يخسن أتكتكو وصا أتك قصاك يا ساجد آواتي ودي تقاق ستيقة شاوات ستيه أتك قصاك يا أقوت أودهان تتخانتي أتيديك قصكان تأتيدي أدوية يوسقاوات أخوخ إيه جاء إيه يقندك لي يقيقت تا كان ينتنات في يا أي كاكس ستكايت كوتني اختاقي وسنيت اختاقي وتيت تتخنت أقاوتا وانا اشتاقت تخت وخوش وتونت هو تكتي أولش أو خط وكت هو هو أول وشعوت تيدا وتخيت تيدا أيا وتن تؤيك سكيتي أيا فهو يحقق كتنوكي أسو سخاكو سويدي ودي تتخاخد كت ها تاس كت تاقها يوا وساء هذا كان ستكس كان يخان سنة وساوة تلو اقتبوا سيد هاي خاشي وكوك وقعت يقاوتي أقاو وكك ويودتك أدنكو يخنس كيت تكتو أي يخنس كيت أي دخ كان كنت واوستين وتونت وكيت تأو داوت تأخ وتونت فيك يقوسي أقوس كوتي أكد ستين خطايا كيف خيخك يكاني أو تسكتوت قاني سته تسكتوت قاني ستيك إتا يسمسخ أخناعتي تنا تسقاعات جواده وكوتينده مكاونيك هاكاني أو يخطا خاختاك يسكتوت قاني ستي يكاني أو عدلكو يجق واتيق وأنيك دو تقيق سقطخا أو أخ تريد كيدخ أنا كوت أخي تجي قاتها هني أو يقيقت قيس دوتك أنتو هو قواي وكك أتاكو تشيك تكاوت خنده وكود تتاقى تئيس يوا كيس وأد أنا أديتين هيك اسكوي وأيدي أتعاتي والنقل أنا قول فئة وكيدي فتكون قلنا كوت أكاد قلنا أكاد خطيو يا أكاد قلنا وكنت الشيء يا دوات خوخ أنت تخشك أتو الشيء يا شيخ كوت يتخوخ وناوه يتتاقى Kataka Hota, Yakayo Sekad, Anayaka, the Ḳaakéx'wti has the car a trade of do our art. A Kawata Konakawanek, you don't a Unashatan sake. Konakawanek, Unashatan sake. See, go on. Our Akatika, Atakawa now, do a Tekach. What car should call the car? What car honey could turn? That's the toys get the car to the year. I'll call you with the 6 car. Kick the car to the heck. The hand got hit a cool set what the year. The car to the Yachakana. I do it at the car. At the car to it. At the car to the hood, the other the court. What you saw, you not show us. Talk you to your ask, okay. Okay, na go. It is the shake. Taho, I done a good. The years are down the court. How did the court ask? The children. After they go out, they were. And I had it, the canyon nooked, they had the canal to crack. Nooked. Oh, what the. They had to say, go out to gate. Say, go away. Say, go city. Take a year, talk to a year, what's the Kono Conic, good as a can't go out there, no good. I had to in. Hit the eat the shake, that a hoe, that a hold. I hold that to eat the shake, that a hold. That you were Xóots X, then that a hoe. The Ďákowa. Yeah, what a nice technique. That I tell you, can say the Xóots X, that a hood, had to Ďákowa, so could I take her, Ďákowa can't eat it too.
A klein skasnik klein. Jin cat when it's ʼayaaxuwdlig. Tlikuti ahe. Shukush kalnik hard, I cooking chakut ye de awa. Hasakawlnigan. Mik ʼayaaḳuwdlig. De kinatsu shkalnik kutzati. Weta yahuchi ʼayaaḳuwdlig. Duchuk aya ʼayaaḥuwdlig sa at kukwane. Chukleawe wa keitl kone hastu katuk de awa hasbu art. Du we keitl du ik kadu keitli. Aqawe du shat ayaye yausaka. Tliltzideen awe ik kakwajaqi. Tleshe kwatiqoa. Khat kakwajaq. Chu oya du qasego awe. Du jitawati we hoots. Gantu aguta au qawe du chuneti awe du tek tunach aya awatuk. Chukwaya du shatqa yaw saqa. Kedeen awe latin ya achtugu. Yewe du tuati. I kasas du in kananikta. Kedeen latin achtugu. Ach kasegu itr. Howe wuna. Aqawe. Wan qanins wish kalnik tin Xóots X du shat. Qawe du ik du inakawnik khataya ik. Aqawe wana ni sawe lingit Xóots. Takhnach awe du yatki. Shugo ate kinash kalniki. Takhnach du yatki. Haste ani te haswo at. Aqawe du ik du tawasaku haste inash kulyati. Chunate tin. Ye awe du inakawnik klash eka chunate koa. Just ash kulyati at. Klash du toash koa. Tlaik. Tlakawe du tawasaku al tin shawe du yatki. Ultinji ayadu tawasaku. Kunde hinsa koa ewa wuz. Tatqaye guk. Au satin koa klaq. Eka chunate awe. Achawe. Kathatsewa kwasado sago at. Aqaqaqwashi. Shwude. Kathatsewa Xóots X aqa awe du ik awe jak. A itch has du ani dachwu goed du yetkitin telkuchwte goodi. Yewe gwallen shuwatan weshkalnik galchish. Wasayi tuwuch Johan.
ʼYaaxuwdlig wanachsawa where nakish on dach where dach shkafnik ye haina kawanik on oh no oops okay atayit dua uk Eka khange
Oh. Guksa.
Line 405. Atayit dua uk.
Dua uk.
Wanachsawa atayit dua uk. I can see if they're going to burn the body, but in the previous story, they didn't. They saved the skin, but they didn't eat him. Did not eat them.
It was like a little different in terms of what they had to do with his body, right?
Well, usually, the body would be cremated like any human. But that it doesn't say anything about the hide. Is it just because it's understood?
Yeah, like it seems like they burned him, like in this version it seems like they burned him up completely.
Yeah.
But usually like and there's a little bit of variation in these stories.
Oh yeah, it has to be.
The version that I usually heard was he said, "You got to take really good care of my hide." And what he said is, I could kill your brother so easily, but I'll go give myself to him. And so I think he did that because, who knows? Like there was all these like that bear knew what was going to happen, so he said, "I'll just go get killed, but tell him to take care of my hide and say a prayer over me," you know. And so there was a real dramatic part with that, which you don't see in this other version, which is, you know, fine, but it's interesting to look at those differences and then to see like, because, and then there's a couple different things too, which we'll get to next week when we look at Ḳaates, where I think there's also some things that are told in Ḳaates that might have happened in this story and vice versa. So
Anyway, interesting.
yeah, because they didn't take the hide here, and then it's also they start calling it a black bear too at some point. Like it kind of switches, which was interesting too.
I didn't understand why they didn't want to help her, or she was hungry, or I don't know what they were giving her a hard time about at the end. He wouldn't let them feed her.
Yeah, right? Because, well, yeah, and so there was, like, so this one, yeah, and then they say she was a goner, right?
Yeah.
She was crawling around. And then, so that's like how this one ends. But the other one, and the ones that I'm a little bit more familiar with, is that he saw her and she was also a bear, but then she started saying, it's me. And then eventually she changed back, or they brought her back and then she got changed back. And then she had the two kids, and then her brother wanted to go play with them and pretend to hunt them. And she didn't want him to do that. But he said, they're not real arrows, though. They're not real. And so finally he convinced her. He just kept asking. So she let him, and then she looked out, and that's that part where he kept saying, clock, clock. Like, they were real arrows that he was using. So the verb, I found the verb, it's ḥaakéx'wti. ḥaakéx'wti that's when she changed herself back into a bear. I learned that one from ʼayaaḳuwdlig, George Davis. So ḥaakéx'wti. She turned herself back into a bear, and she went and she killed her brother, and then she left the town with her kids. So it's interesting because this one ends like differently, right?
Yeah, in נחil-Ann's version, she there was something different I just thought of. Oh, that's okay. It went out of my head.
Okay. That's a lot of tlingit. There's a lot of deep level tlingit all at once.
That's what it takes.
Yep.
Shaawát. I think I read Tom Peters told this story to Catherine McClellan in that book, Part of the Land, Part of the Water, and in English. And he has it end differently there, where she lives. I think she kills her brothers, and then she goes off into the mountains, and she's to be a bear forever. So I always thought that was just fascinating how he would tell it differently. You know, it's like this living thing, this story.
Yeah, right. Which is like, even when they're telling it, sometimes you get to that ending and it's different. Which is like, some people, when we would tell stories, they would say, you're telling it wrong, it's gotta be this way. You know, but I'm like, there's like 3 different ways that this one's told, you know, and so it's really wild to look at that stuff. And then the Ḳaates, when we get to Ḳaates too, there's a couple things that I think aren't in there that I was talking with some folks from Angoon about that I think are really interesting. But we'll get to that. So next week we'll probably do there's Ḳaates, the Glacier Bay stories, and then the Anushi. And then if we got time, we'll just move into ʻayaaḳuwdlig, which will it'll be interesting too, because those are they're just generally shorter, and it's different because now that's moving into oratory and ʼayaaḳuwdlig speeches, and also speeches at kind of elders gatherings. So it'll have a really different flavor than these, which are these long, like these are 20-minute stories. Like telling a 20-minute story is just amazing to me. And especially because there's really big concepts, there's really big verbs in these, and so our job here is mostly to engage with it and cling it. But if there are specific things you want to look at, just let me know, and we'll do our best, because yeah, some of the stuff is really wild. There's like a very really big word that he uses in here. Maybe we'll end with that. I gotta pull it up I gotta find, oh, here it is. And then he uses it again in the Raven stories. And when we get to the Raven book, we do have all the audio for that one. Almost all the audio. Dinach. Let me find this word. So we did a deep dive on this great big word here. Which, hold on, get that out of the way. So the word is ʼayaaḳuwdlig. And so when we take a look at this term, ʼayaaḳuwdlig, to parts unknown, whereabouts unknown, and it's a really big story, and so it's a really big word, I guess. So he's saying here, ʼayaaḳuwdlig yan ʼatduchan, after they had dried plenty of fish. ʼayaaḳuwdlig yan ʼatduchan ʼawetsa, after they had dried plenty of fish. And then in here, ʼayaaḳuwdlig yan asni wehit, when he finally finished the houses. And this one is Raven and the Salmon Box. So it's like with any of these stories, there's so much there just in terms of length, content, vocabulary, the verbs. The verbs always get really big and crazy in some of these parts. And then just like the story itself, like these big, huge stories that we talked about. And some of them, they're just short versions of these bigger, longer stories. And as we see, the ways that each of them tell them is really different.
The book ʼayaaḵuwdlig, there's a chapter in there about Elizabeth Nyman's birth.
Oh, yeah.
Her difficult life growing up.
We're gonna
Terrible.
read that.
Oh, thank you. I read it. I read through the English like 3-4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I could barely make it through the story. I cried every page. I was crying.
Oh.
I'd like to read it again, and this time not feel so emotional about it.
Yeah, and we have several students who went through Sumik. David Russell Jensen actually did most of it, and did a retype of pretty much the whole book. So we have it in the bibliography that we're using. But yeah, there's one thing to take from a lot of this stuff, which was Tlingits were pretty hardcore at one time, and Tlingit peoples were really not nice to people whose parents died when they were young. Unless somebody took them in right away, they had a very hard life. And Bill Fawcett was the one who told me that too, because his mother died when he was really young, and then she remarried someone who was like a really big, important person, but he said everybody was just very mean to him. Well, his dad died, I think, shortly before he was born, then his mom died just after he was born. And he was ʼḤaakéx'wti, but he said it was really tough. And so those are things every culture's got stuff that they used to do that probably wasn't great. So those are some things we're going to run into. And when we get to the Nyman stuff, yeah, she's got stories, And then she's got this huge life history, which is incredible, but also, yeah, very difficult in a lot of different ways. So, gonna cheese, Johan, get some rest, and
ʼayaaḳuwdlig.
put your brain to sleep.
Goodness cheese.
Cheese.
Not today.
Wati.
What? Tiakin.